Hello and welcome to another episode of Metanauts. I'm Lee, also known as Metageist. In this episode we talk to Rizzle. Now, it's a very strange time in NFTs at the moment. We're going through what is kind of like a vindication for the early adopters. There's like a Cambrian explosion now with all sorts of new life forms, platforms and projects, and communities are growing and succeeding and doing extremely well. Just to place this video in time, Visa bought a CryptoPunk yesterday, so we are seeing the clash of the financial institutions of the old world being forced to adopt this new technology. But in the early days, it really wasn't about that. There was a deep idea amongst people in the community, I believe, that there was something huge on the horizon with this technology. But ultimately, people were just having fun, creating artworks, creating communities, and exploring and experimenting with the technology. In this episode, we learn a little bit from Rizzle, who is one of those people who has been part of all of the projects in the space that have done extremely good in terms of creating communities and lifting artists and allowing project developers a platform to share their stories. So Rizzle was a commentator and storyteller, has been part of some of the biggest movers in the space from the beginning. Has had a unique sort of perspective on the NFT space and is still incredibly humble, still really busy, and has some exciting stuff on the horizon. This episode was kind of cursed. This is the second attempt at it. Anybody who's lost a bit of artwork or a Photoshop file or a music track or a podcast that they've recorded knows what it's like to lose something you've spent ages creating. But we came back, we did it again. It went really well. It's another really good episode. And my microphone is also still a bit dodgy in this, so my apologies for that. All links to the projects that Rizzle mentions will be in the description below. Please give us a like and a follow and subscribe with notifications if you want to watch more episodes like this. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. Hello again, Rizzle. How you doing?
Great, man. Good to be back for round two.
Yeah. I was just saying, it feels a little bit like deja vu being back here, although less sweaty, and this time it will record.
Yes, dude. It's a great one that will be lost in the void forever, but you and I and Paradoxx were all there for it, so it'll go down in history.
Yeah, all those deep, dark secrets and hot takes and mind-blowing secret behind-the-scenes information. I'll take it to the grave, dude.
That's right, man. We'll try and deal it up this time as best we can.
Right then, so this first segment is imaginatively called Who is Rizzle? So in this segment, we just want like 2 minutes, like an introduction basically, as to who you are and how we know you in the NFT space.
Sure, man. I actually ask myself this question sometimes as well. Who is Rizzle? I have tinkered around with crypto for a long time, sort of fell deep into the NFT rabbit hole when the NFTs were in their infancy. Gained some sort of social media clout on Scent in its old previous format. Started a podcast with my buddy Matt like almost 2 years ago now that we've been doing ever since on a weekly basis, interviewing people within the space. I do live events within the NFT space. I co-founded NFT 42, which does like a billion things. Most notably at the very moment is Avastars, which just closed and is now taking off like crazy. Exited NFT 42 on great terms, still cool with everybody. But now I'm launching my own project. I'm advising on a few different NFT projects. And in the meantime, I like to just run my mouth on Twitter and, poke fun at people and stir the pot a little bit.
Yeah, I think the first time I ever saw your name against anything on the internet was on Scent. My first time on Scent, the first post I saw, which confused the hell out of me, was I'm sticking googly eyes on things, and these are some photos of the googly eyes I've stuck on things. And I was like, what, is he making these into NFTs? What's going on here? It's not what I expected from Scent. So it's no surprise that you turned out to be the sort of person that likes to sort of like have a laugh, basically, and mess around, and you do whatever the hell you want, basically, which is good. I like it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I was most interested in the gaming mechanism of Scent, and it wasn't so focused about NFTs, and it like everyone was sort of right there watching NFTs spring up right in front of us. So I did a collab with my buddy Mighty Moose with some of the googly eye pictures. It's still out there on Unknown Origin, I believe. I actually rebought a couple of them just because it was such a fun experiment, but it was a great time for NFTs, man.
So if you had 10 seconds to say your origin story, like how you got into NFTs in the first place, how would you go about that starting now?
I get obsessed with things and I love art.
It's easy to get obsessed, isn't it? There's always something to grab your attention in this space, so it's very easy to just stay obsessed, stay tapped into it, and stay active.
Well, it didn't help that I was like previously obsessed with the technology. I mean, I've been tinkering around with like crypto and different crypto projects for, since like 2012, 2013. And so once NFTs came along, it was like really game over for me. It was like, a punt down like the second rabbit hole within the rabbit hole I was already sort of obsessed with. So it really like spoke to me. And yeah, the ability to have so much fun with it is also another component that I really love.
Yeah, so you mentioned podcasts. Then, as this is how I discovered this space. Was I did a search for crypto art on Spotify or maybe on my iPhone. But the first podcast I found was yours, you and Matt, talking about crypto art. That was pretty much, that's a long term thing, isn't it? It's something that you're still doing at the moment, but has been consistent. It's been consistent since the beginning of my journey into crypto art. Anyway, it's something that I've massively relied on in the past to stay up to speed. That's still something that you enjoy and that you're going to be doing on into the future, I suppose. You and Matt still working together?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And we also work together on the Whip, which we're like in the process, which is a virtual meetup that takes place in virtual worlds that are NFT based. And we're, currently in cahoots, working on supercharging that. We've been, working on that for a long time, but, it hasn't been on the forefront of things until too recently. But Matt and I have been doing the podcast forever. And again, was just the same thing with the Whip, just one of these things that we did for fun. Like Matt was like sort of obsessed with podcasts and really wanted to do one. And we like hit it off. And I was like, sounds like fun. And now it's like really fun, man, because people hit us up and like really want to get on our podcast. And Matt and I get to sort of sit back and like scrutinize different people's like projects and poke holes in them and, ask, we try not to like totally grill people, but we have gotten a lot of high profile projects on recently that like are almost nothing projects. They just sprung up out of nowhere. We like to do this thing where we like check into their NFT wallets at the end. So we're like, what do you guys got? Like, how have you been collecting things within the space? Like what else interests you? And they turn up empty. So that's kind of interesting, like to see, to have been doing this for a long time, to see the progression of the space sort of happening in front of us. And so it's cool, man. And this is absolutely one of these things, like it started off just for fun and we will continue it just for fun, just because, I don't know, we've always done it, man. And Matt's a good dude. And, at this point it's like old hat. We just sort of hop on the thing once a week, see who the guest is, shoot the shit for an hour and, tie it in a knot and it's cool.
Nice. Is that how you found out about Token Spot and NF42? Did you know about those beforehand?
Yes. So Jim McNellis, who is a famous Twitter crypto troll as well, or at least was more trolly back in the day, was making waves.
Yeah, I don't see so much of him now. I assume he's busy making some sort of new disruptive.
Yes, yes, and NFT 42 took on big investors that maybe don't want Jim to be so trolly. I don't know. Jim also answers to nobody.
No, I should hope not. That would be very disappointing, wouldn't it, if he's signed NDAs and been told to behave himself? That would be,
exactly. I highly doubt that Jim would ever put himself in that position. But Jim was starting a bunch of trouble on Twitter, and I said to Matt, I was like, let's get this crazy dude on our podcast because he's in the center of it all right now. And then Jim turned out to be like a really awesome dude, and him and I hit it off. And I really believed in his philosophy, which was like not very common knowledge back at the time. It was basically that all NFTs, like in the perfect world, should live on the blockchain and not, have parts of them living on the blockchain, but being called from IPFS or some other like third party type of system. And so, Jim was trying to build a better NFT like way before anyone gave a shit at all about building a better NFT. And he expressed that during the podcast. And I was like, I think this dude is onto something. Like I, got in the game and assumed that's what, the way my NFTs were built. And so I assumed other people made that assumption too. And so, I believed he was ahead of the game with his whole like philosophy, and it's turning out to be very, very true. So I pestered Jim. I met him in NFT NYC. He famously like yelled at Nike and like, mid presentation, I went over to him immediately and started instigating him to, help him continue, giving him ammunition to yell at Nike about. And so shortly after that became the first co-founder of NFT 42, along with Jim, which does like a billion things at this point. The Avastars, Nameless, Token Smart, which is how I fell into that whole clique, and amongst a bunch of other things too, the Metal Olympics. So it's been sort of a whirlwind, man, to be honest with you. But yeah, Jim and I met via the podcast, which is how honestly a lot of things have sort of unfolded.
I can imagine. Yeah, you mentioned Avastars. That's entirely on chain, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, man. I feel like, at the end of the day, one of the things I really love about the NFT space is that I feel like it really appreciates innovation within the NFT space. And I think Avastars is almost undoubtedly going to go down there as one of these like technological benchmarks within the space. It's hard to call it like the original profile picture, but it really was like in the very beginning when no one really cared about these like generative profile pictures. Concepts at all. Now everyone's, trying to churn them out. Avastars has actually put out a really, really high quality product that was trying to do that thing that, again, was just like almost so far ahead of the game that it was like a victim of, being so forward thinking. But now it's capped, and it seems like, people are starting to take notice and everything. And it's good, man. I'm really like, I no longer work for NFT 42, left on good terms, still buddies with Jim. I just trolled him with a meme like earlier today. But I'm honestly really, really happy for him and that project. And full disclosure, I hold a bunch of Avastars too, but I feel like that's the type of stuff that I really love to see get credit and, people invest in rather than just like, running back and forth between these like fly by night projects that like nobody knows who they're behind. Nobody knows if they have legs. Nobody knows if these people are going to deliver or if they're going to sell out or whatever. Like at this point in the NFT space, we have like some really great like benchmark projects that are still like affordable that I feel like, if this space continues to grow as rapid as it has been, there's no doubt that like, you hold any combination of some of these projects 3, 4, 5 years from now, you probably be doing all right. Dude, I was just going to say, it does sort of like feel like people have gotten back to work recently, like in the past few weeks or so. It seemed like there was this big like FOMO hype bubble that's still going on, man. But I feel like if you pay attention, like a lot of the innovators in the space like have a new project or like doing a new thing or are like, pushing, the boundaries somewhere else, and the space like spread out so rapidly, so quickly. But now the people who, we all hung out with back in the day are all starting to tinker around again. And that's the exciting stuff, man. I mean, obviously you guys are doing it too. I mean, this is one of your guys' thing that you're starting to tinker around with. And this is the fun stuff, man. This is what I'm here for.
Yeah, absolutely. Hanging out, communication. We want to do a lot more sort of real world things, go travel and jump over the pond and actually see some people face to face, go to some events. No one stops working. We're in this space because we're a certain type of person, I think, and ain't gonna stop. Yeah, so you found yourself through your podcast and through the Whip meetups being a bit of a I'm not going to use the I word, bit of a community leader, a figure in the space. In the NFT space. How's that been for you?
I was wondering what words you were going to choose, man. I was like instigator, shit starter.
No. I was going to say influencer, but it's a bit of a dirty word, isn't it?
Yeah. It's been really fun, man. I mean, in my previous lives, positions, jobs, I've like sort of fallen into that role before, so it wasn't like super surprising to me that like that's where I was having the most fun and that's where I would gain like the most traction and everything. And dude, I feel like I also just hit it right, man. It was like, especially when I like hit Token Smart really hard, hit the Whip really hard. It was right at the beginning of like this big convergence of like, art, audio NFTs, like virtual, meetups. And so it became very, very easy to just like stack the deck of like, a full week's worth of live programming that was all had to do with NFTs. And, they're all like, I mean, they're still going to this day, a ton of them, and they're still like very, very well attended. They're basically like different live talk shows and everything. And so it's cool, man. We started this sort of thing with the virtual meetups with the Whip, and there was so much spillover from people who wanted to present their projects to our audience that, Token Smart Discord almost became like one big Whip meetup where we just had presentations and, talks and discussions going on throughout the week, different like field trips to virtual worlds and everything. And it's cool, man. And yes, a part of me like has this, I don't know, derives this pleasure from being like, the Braveheart guy with the sword in the front, like, yelling at everybody the whole time and heckling the crowd and everything. You got to think back, man, when we started this, like, it was just for fun. So there was no like promise of any monetary gain. There was nothing that we were really striving for other than to just see if we could have fun and like make this thing work and just keep iterating and tinkering. And so I feel like the attitude of the Whip and how it, and myself and how it sort of flourished has been like very natural because, nothing has changed. We're still doing the same thing but just with a whole lot more attention. And I don't know, man, enough people like me yelling at them and stirring the pot that I just keep digging into it. And, here I am.
Yeah, it's a tough job, right? But someone's got to do it. Yeah, so the Whip, WIP, isn't it? Standard for like, work in progress, because the initial idea was like, I remember hearing on the podcast that it was like, we need to do an event, but we're doing an event in a browser with a bunch of people with poor focus skills, with a bunch of tabs open. So let's like do something like really short and sharp. People come on stage for like 5 minutes. They say what they're working on. And then after we've got talked to a few people in the Discord on the audio channels, we then do something in crypto voxels if that's possible. So that you would be like the flag bearer, like you say, at the front of like some sort of march or some sort of road trip or pub crawl or roof party or whatever in crypto voxels at the same time. Yeah, and it's still going exactly the same, right? It's still the same thing. You go to crypto voxels and you jump on the Discord and you listen to a bunch of speakers. But there's like pre-show and a post-show, and there's a bunch of, you have a lot like live music and stuff like that. So it's turned into a bit of an institution with hundreds of people, at least a couple of hundred people at least every single time listening, isn't it? Every Thursday.
It's cool, man. It's like it's sort of taken on a life of its own as like a community gathering point, and it's cool to see other people just show up to hang out like with other people. It's just sort of like a meeting grounds. Like people show up, they know a bunch of familiar faces are going to be there. They know they're going to hear about some like cool crypto projects that they may not necessarily be familiar with. If you want to hang out early, we usually have some sort of like pre-show that is either music involved or a deeper dive into an NFT project. We have Show, who is an incredible enigma within the space as well, in terms of like trying to define who Show is, but he does a bit at the end of the Whip that's almost like a 20-minute stand-up comedy routine that's also NFT based, and people stick around afterwards for that. So it has, man, it's really, really fun to have like sort of an anchor within the space where it's predictable that every single week the same people are going to be there. I'll get to hang out with them, and that's like the thing we do. And a bunch of other people show up inevitably. It's been like steadily growing as time goes on, but our focus has never been to like try and get all the millionaires and billionaires and celebrities in there to speak. It's more like a ground floor NFT innovator community event for people who want to know like what the new stuff is, and hang out with like a lot of the people who really built this space, man. A lot of the people who show up to this thing are like
the same people,
OGs,
Yeah. It's great. It's a great place to send people for onboarding as well. So new people into the space. There's no way for anyone to be able to come to any Whip with no previous knowledge of NFTs and not get a little bit weirded out and confused by a bunch of acronyms and trippy, weird, voxelized fashion. But yeah, it's great. It's where I send people. And you're still onboarding all the time, I'm sure, and helping people out. And I noticed that recently, well, I bought a couple of your kids' artwork who they've been making their own NFTs now. We're going to bring them up on the screen. They're some of my favorite NFTs. Honestly, they're really, really, really cool and very sweet to be sent a freebie as well for supporting. So you've been teaching these little artists to look after their collectors, which is wonderful.
Dude, it almost brought a tear to my eye, man. It was his suggestion. He was like so happy that people were buying his art. He was like, can I give them a gift? And I was like, yeah, you can actually. And it was you had said you were looking forward to squids, which inspired the squid smoking cigarettes picture. I don't know why they're smoking cigarettes. We actually talked about cigarettes after that, but
they're not cool.
They were really cool. I was like, I saw them and I was like, what are they doing?
Oh no, they're cool. The squids are cool. Yeah, I was just saying, they're saying like cigarettes.
Oh, no. But yeah, that's thinking he thinks they're cool too, but it didn't want to stifle the artistic process here, and so yeah, squid smoking cigarettes. And I almost stopped him and I was like, actually, this is really dope, man. If someone sent me their kid's picture of a squid smoking cigarettes, I'd be all about it. So
it's no more childish than some of the highest grossing collectible projects out there. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's wicked. It's awesome. And no doubt we'll see NFTs in his life a lot more going forward, not just because he's got a dad in the space, but just because they're inevitable, really. They're going to work their way into all sorts of apps and computer games and things like that kids will be using more and more over time. I mean, maybe we're just so far down the rabbit hole that we think these things are going to take over the world, but I'm pretty convinced.
I'm pretty convinced, man. And I'm trying to not just pour Kool-Aid down my son's mouth, but having him sell a couple pieces of art, and we weren't trying to price gouge anyone. I think it was 0.02 ETH or something. It was just put 5 editions out there. He just has been so curious about the space. But I feel like, as a kid, I would be too. So, super curious, I mean, this stuff speaks to me. I was an RPG grinder back in the day, so all the implications of this, I think would be fascinating to me then too. So I'm trying to toe the line where I give them some stuff to run with, but also not send them down a rabbit hole that'll never be able to get out of.
Cool, yeah, so this is your section to give us a little bit of insight into the stuff you're working on now. We're very keen to find out what you're working on, obviously, but some things are going to be easier to share than others, we understand. But have you got any sort of tidbits or any information about what you're doing these days?
Sure, dude, I'll give you guys the alpha. I haven't leaked it yet. I'll give you a little alpha. Yes, dude, that's why this is better than our marathon recording last time. I actually have a little bit more information I can make public. So I don't want to give out too much, man, but I'll tell you, dude, I really wanted to, when I left NFT 42, man, I really wanted to do my own project that was innovative within the space, in the same spirit of innovation that's sort of got us here. And I connected immediately with Snowfro and talked to him about my idea, and he loved my idea immediately. And then it was a matter of finding the correct developer who could execute this concept, which was not an easy find. He introduced me to Cheater Flums, aka Stebby, who has some history working with art blocks and doing some on-chain stuff that he felt like this would be the right guy, with a little bit of guidance from him. So we pulled in Miguel Garest, who's one of my favorite artists within the space, who I felt could execute on an artistic side the thing that we're talking about. And so I'm stoked, dude. We're 3-4 weeks into the project now. Everything's sort of falling into place. I put it in front of Jim. I put it in front of Matt. I put it in front of Snowfro. Everyone seems to really think this is a good idea. I've got some creative mechanisms that I'm going to introduce to it that sort of play with some other things that we've got going on with the WIP meetup. So I'm trying to do it right, man. And I feel like if I do something that makes me want to FOMO into my own project, then I'm doing something right. And I do genuinely feel like when this thing drops, if y'all don't buy it, I'm buying it.
So, good, excellent.
And so that's sort of what what the goal was, man. I feel like, I left the company. I was given a great opportunity to go into the space and do something that I really want to do, which is, and I feel like this fits all the bills, man. It's like really stupid in like the greatest ways, but also like innovative and, has a sense of humor and a lot of elements that I think people will appreciate and have some use cases. So name dropping is the biggest alpha that I got for you at this point.
Great. No, it's good. It's good.
Right now, Cheater Flums, Miguel Garest, and myself working on the Rizzle project, which will be named something else when we're ready to announce.
Excellent. Amazing. So it's no surprise. If I would have had to guess, I would have guessed it would be generative, on-chain, and silly. So it sounds like it's pretty much perfect.
We'll see, man. I don't know. I'm also advising on a handful of other projects, including the Whip, which I don't know if you consider me an advisor, but that's a long-standing project of mine that I'll continue. The podcast with Matt will continue indefinitely. Working as an advisor with the meme economy, which sort of got me on this like meme kick, and that's like a interesting project that has got like a lot of moving parts. I'm trying to like break it down and simplify it both for myself and for other people. And a couple of charity projects that I have in the work that was one of my goals to sort of have my hand in something that, gives back to people in some capacity. And so those things are sort of in their infancy, but they're coming along, and I got a couple other irons in the fire as I always have, but the Rizzle project is my main priority and focus right now. Although at the moment, the tough part is out of my hands, and just sort of, it almost seems too good to be true, man. So, we'll see how it plays out. I don't have any times table yet. I wish I did.
Well, awesome. Thank you very much for that, Alpha. Very cool to hear the people you're working with, and obviously you've run it past some of the biggest brains in the space. So, between a lot of you, I'm extremely excited to find out what it is, and we'll be looking out for it. No doubt FOMO in straight away. So awesome. Very cool.
Dude, really appreciate you guys having me on here to run my mouth and spill some alpha and just catch up with you, man. I mean, you and I go way back at this point, so any excuse to get on a thing and hang out and talk NFTs, man, I'm all about it. So thank you guys very, very much.